is Ann Davio. I'm from the Doherty Art Center. I coordinate the exhibits program at the Doherty Art Center. We're welcoming Meena Matocha. She is going to be demonstrating creating a visual journal. And I'll go ahead and let Meena take over from here.
Well, hello. Thank you, Anne, and everyone at the Doherty Art Center for inviting me to be a part of this. I am a born and raised Austinite, so the Doherty has been a part of my life since I was a kid. I had dance recitals there, and my parents would take me to see art shows there. And so this is kind of a milestone for me to be an artist with the Doherty. So thank you so much, Anne and everybody. And I also just want to say thank you for everybody who are joining us today and spending your afternoon with us, your Saturday afternoon. I'm really excited to be with you all and share this tool. It has been a help to me, not just in my creative process as an artist, but it has been there to help me process difficulties in my life. It has been there as a mental health tool, mental health help tool, especially in this last year and a half. And my hope is that it will become something that is a tool for you as well, that helps you through things. So let's see, with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. All right, well, welcome to Creating a Visual Journal for Non-Artist Artists. I am one of those people who believe that we all have a creative capacity within us, whether it's making visual artwork or any other sort of creative outlet. We are all artists in some way, and I think our lives themselves are works of art. So this is a workshop that's geared toward non-artists who are not trained. Anybody and everybody can do it. So this is not about making a beautiful sketchbook, like full of pretty pictures. This is about having a tool to help us slow down, to help us pay attention, and to help us process things that are happening in our lives and in the lives of those around us and in the world. So let me give you a little background about me. So keeping a visual journal has been something I've done for the last 5 years or so. Like I said, it does help me with my creative process. It has helped me sort of develop themes in my artwork and concepts kind of underneath. One of the main patterns that I saw popping up in my journal was this question of how I live with sadness. And so, like, I've always been a kind of a melancholy person, even though I love to laugh and I really love to have a good time. There was always this sadness, and I do struggle with chronic depression. And so it was always something there, you know, how can I be honest about these feelings of sadness, but keep going with my life? And then, you know, just kind of this idea that joy and grief sort of are in the same space within our lives, and how do we move forward with those two sometimes in tension with each other? And so it was these questions that kind of helped me come up with this new body of work that I'm showing you now, where I'm using charcoal and ashes and soil and cold wax to kind of symbolize humanity and mortality and grief, but at the same time bringing hope. I think when we're honest about how we're really doing and really kind of going through that lament in our lives, it really does bring out the joy even more. And so, you know, I'm really influenced by the Christian narrative of life coming out of death, that through death we are raised to life, and there's hope that comes out of grief. There's light that breaks through the darkness. And, you know, even if we only get glimpses of that, it's there and it's real. And I feel like too, you know, this past year, my visual journal has just been this lifeline for me. I think there's such an overwhelming just feeling of loss and grief, you know, just over the past year to now. And it's so tempting to just go numb and veg out and, you know, binge watch Netflix and just to avoid things. And I think there's a time for that. You know, I've definitely had periods of that, but my visual journal has definitely helped me, you know, kind of pay attention and stay observant and stay in reality. And it has helped me to stay connected to my sense of wonder and beauty and empathy and compassion. So one of my great influences for the series has been the poet Mary Oliver. In her poem, We Shake with Joy, she talks about this tension. So I'll go ahead and read it to you now. We shake with joy, we shake with grief. What a time they have, these two, housed as they are in the same body. And this, you know, all of this has come out of my visual journals and has helped me create this body of work that I'm really proud of, and I feel like really expresses who I am and what I want to say and what I want to share with the world. And I think I would be scattered otherwise if I didn't have my visual journals. And so I'm very grateful to be able to have found that tool. So in 2019, I opened an art school for elementary aged kids. And I really wanted to open a school that wasn't just focused on technique, even though that's really important to me and to pass that along. But I wanted to kind of tap into these kids at this age have a natural sense of creativity that's kind of fearless and bold. And I really wanted to foster that. And, you know, instead of squashing that by telling them they have to draw something or make something that looks exactly like, you know, X or Y, that, you know, they can be creative and they can, you know, the abstract expressionists are something that are people and artists that we really kind of look to for these kids. And so this picture is showing them out in my backyard. You can see them with their visual journals. And I'm behind the camera, I'm walking them through the steps of keeping their visual journal and teaching them how to pay attention and be still. And it really is kind of amazing how it changes their focus and their bodies kind of calm down. And they really are able to observe and take in the world around them. And it's kind of inspiring. So one of the things that, you know, is a foundation for my school and teaching the visual journal is to pay attention. And, you know, I'm always kind of at the beginning of each class, I'm asking them, what makes a good artist? And it could be asked, what makes a good human being? And we pay attention to ourselves, we pay attention to others and to the world around us, and we respond with compassion and care. And this is really what I want my students to develop for the whole of their lives, whatever they end up doing, in their life. I want to instill in them this idea of paying attention and bringing what they see into their lives. And the visual journal is the main way that I teach that to them, and it's what I want to pass on to you all today. So here is a page from one of my journals. This is a sketch from May last year during the pandemic. Keeping a visual journal has been a real gift to me during the pandemic and during other periods of my life of loss that have been sort of just life-changing. And I think too, with the pandemic and the rhythms of our life, just changing so much, it's just been pretty impossible for me to focus on making large pieces of artwork. I just can't make that a priority. But the visual journal has kind of helped me stay grounded in what I like to call my cocoon phase. And it's that, before there's the butterfly, there's the cocoon part where you slow down, you process and think. And as an artist, it keeps my foundation in creativity, drawing and paying attention, and rather than being in a mode of production or always feeling the need to produce artworks, that time will come, but there's this saying, the only way out is through, and we all need that cocoon phase before the butterfly can come out. And so I think not just artists, but all human beings need the cocoon phase. And so this sketch, just this one sketch, it took me about 10 minutes to do in the backyard. It reminded me of a quote by this artist, Karita Kent. And I'll read the quote to you now. "Love the moment. Flowers grow out of dark moments. Therefore, each moment is vital. It affects the whole. Life is a succession of such moments, and to live each is to succeed." And so just this idea of paying attention to all the parts of our life, not just the joy and not just the lament, but all the pieces of our life. And it also connected me to a spiritual teaching that Jesus shares with a large crowd. And he's wanting to let them know that they're seen and known. And he talks about paying attention to the wildflowers. And I'll just read to you what he says. "Walk into the fields and look at the wildflowers. They don't fuss with their appearance, but have you ever seen color and design quite like it? The 10 best dressed men and women in the country look shabby alongside them. If God gives such attention to the wildflowers, most of them never even seen, don't you think he'll attend to you, take pride in you, do his best for you?" So this one sketch that took me about 15 minutes to do, it kind of forced me to slow down, and it brought to mind these encouraging truths for me, and it grounded me that day. And I was able, it became a part of me. It became a part of my body, and I hope that I was able to take that with me, take that to others. So this question, in a world struggling with so much loss, how do we stay connected to our sense of wonder, beauty, and compassion? We must pay attention. Okay, so here's another quote from Mary Oliver. She says, "Instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, and tell about it." So it's just another reminder to look around, get out of our heads, keep that sense of wonder and then share it somehow. And so I'm going to start by going through some bullet points of what's involved in keeping a visual journal. So breathe, practice mindfulness, train ourselves to see. We draw it, we write it, and then we let it come out of ourselves through empathy, service, and care. And I'll talk more about all these things in a second. Okay, so how do we get our mind and heart in it when we have our sketchbooks or journals in front of us? Okay, so we breathe. So this was something that I researched for my son and for my students. You know, in this elementary age, I found that studies have been done showing that, you know, even though breathing is it's an involuntary action for our bodies, when we are anxious, we tend to breathe really shallow and rapidly, and keep those breaths like in our chest. And this type of breathing in our chest, it causes like an imbalance between the oxygen and carbon dioxide levels in our body. And so when our blood isn't properly oxygenated, it can trigger a stress response like anxiety or panic attacks, sort of that fight or flight response. And so one of the things that I teach my students is to breathe from your belly, and we call them belly breaths. And so, you know, there's this large muscle sort of underneath your rib cage called the diaphragm, and it'll expand when you breathe in, and then, you know, sort of deflate when you breathe out. And so this deep breathing helps us to avoid the stress-inducing sort of fight or flight. And so we, especially, you know, I mean, just over this last year with the ups and downs, lots of anxiety. And so breathing has been really important for me. So take a few deep breaths. And then start paying attention. So, you know, when you're going about your daily life, you know, in traffic, whatever you're doing, what jumps out to you? You know, what sticks with you when you're, you know, listening to the radio or when you're talking with somebody? You know, what triggers an emotion? Sort of take note of these things as you're going through your day. Is there something happening in your life or in the life of somebody that you care about that you want to write down? Just remember those things and try to be, you know, be aware of those things around you. What feeds your soul? So, you know, this is something that is very personal to each person. So I, you know, it's something that will, you know, you'll have to know yourself and understand yourself to know what it is that feeds your soul. But you know, when you figure that out, be intentional about keeping those things in your life and having easy access to those things. So these are personal to me and might help you start thinking of, you know, of the things that feed your soul in your own life. So poetry, music, scripture, ancient prayers, nature, and fiction. And so, you know, these things, all of these things put together, just put it into your journal. That's what is going to go in there. You know, just take note of those things. You can write it down in your journal later. Make it part of your day. Make it part of your sketch that day, whatever it is that you put into your journal. And, you know, really, you know, what I want to emphasize is a visual journal isn't meant to be separate from our everyday lives, but it ought to be part of it. And, it really kind of feeds each other. And so, the more that you practice, paying attention and being observant of these different things around you and have access to these things that feed your soul, the easier it'll become to see. With that, oh yes, I also love this poem from Mary Oliver, this little excerpt. To pay attention, this is our endless and proper work. And so with that, we're going to start with, well, actually, before we start practicing, let me go through exactly what we're going to do. So we'll kind of pay attention to our 5 senses: look, listen, smell, touch, taste. And, try to find some space on your own if you can with your journals. It really helps to just have that quiet space and time for yourself to be able to do this well. It was hard for me to do that at the beginning of the pandemic because my son was home with me, and I did my best to, try to do it with them there. But just try to find that space. Be honest. So, your journal isn't for anybody else. It's just for you. And, it's not poetry that you're writing. Just be honest about, what's going on and what is around you. It doesn't have to be pretty either. Just be honest. And then we draw what we see. Smartphone pictures are okay. That's something I feel like if you do choose to draw what you see, there is something about it that kind of teaches us how to observe an object. And I think out of that, we have empathy for that object or that person that we're looking at. And also, if you do choose to draw what you see, you should always be looking at the object or the person more than your paper. And it doesn't have to look like it. It doesn't have to be pretty at all. You can draw what's in your head from your imagination. That's great. With the kids, like as much as I encouraged them to draw what they saw, we got lots of dinosaurs and puppies, and that was awesome too. So. And play with your watercolors. Again, it doesn't have to look like anything, and you can just have bright blobs of color on your paper, and that works too. Like I said, it doesn't have to represent anything. It doesn't have to be pretty. That really isn't the point of the visual journal. The point of it is to learn how to see. To really see, not just with our eyes, but with our whole selves. So this is, I'm going to show you some examples of some student visual journal works here. So this journal is actually from one of my adult students. And she just chose to do her watercolors, and it was something that was very cathartic for her. She would do these watercolor sort of abstracts, and then she would write, and she would just write and write and write. And it really kind of helped her deal with some really painful grief that she was going through in her life. And then this is a sketch from one of my 6-year-old students. And he chose to draw the trees in my backyard. You can probably see them. He wanted to really just kind of capture what he saw. He saw purple in those trees, and I think that's just great. So there's an example of a representational sketch. And this one is from one of my youngest students. He's 4 years old, and chose to draw from his imagination with the rainbow, which I love. And then he also chose to do a portrait of me. He asked me, Miss Meena, stay still. And so I did, and I'm just very honored. I think he captured me really well. I think that's my smile. Now, if you're up for it, I'm gonna walk you through the steps so we can do this together right now. So grab your sketchbook or some paper or a pencil and or a pen, something to draw with and write with. So I'm going to place an image of one of my succulent plants here. So if you do choose to draw an object, you have something right in front of you to draw. But you are welcome to draw something from your imagination or just play with your watercolors. Normally this would be like a 20 to 30 minute exercise, but for the sake of time and for this Zoom, I'm going to go through it rather quickly. So don't worry if you're not able to kind of get in the zone or really like complete anything. It's really just meant to be an example for you to follow. You can just take the example with you and do it in your own time at your own pace. All right, let's go ahead and begin. Okay, let's take 3 to 5 deep breaths. Remember, they're belly breaths, so you're going to pooch out your belly. And then exhale. Inhale through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Do that a few times. Okay, with your eyes closed, notice what you hear, what you smell, what you touch, and its sensation. And write it down. And what are you thinking about in your brain? So this isn't emotional or physical language. This is thoughts, thoughts in your brain. And write it down. What are you feeling in your heart? This is emotional language. And write it down. What are you feeling in your body? So this is physical. And write that down. Okay, choose an object, look at it, draw it, or draw something from your imagination, or play with your watercolors, create an abstract. And this is also the time to pull in all those things that you've observed in your daily life and the soul-feeding things that you've noted. Write those down here. My smartphone is actually a really useful tool for me in this. If you can ignore everything else that's on it, it really does help me look up song lyrics. If there's a song that I heard that day that I want to write down the lyrics to, or look up poems, it's really helpful for that. But for today, I'll go ahead and read a couple of things that stuck with me as I was preparing for this workshop. And I just encourage you to listen while you draw, or you can just close your eyes and just listen to me read. So the first comes from an African-American Christian spiritual. When it looked like the sun wouldn't shine anymore, God put a rainbow in the clouds. And this quote comes from the amazing Maya Angelou. In order to survive, the ample soul needs refreshments and reminders daily of its right to be and to be wherever it finds itself. Okay, so that was our practical part of the workshop. Again, I know it was really quick, but please take those steps with you and try them on your own when you can kind of slow down and do them at your own pace. I did do this yesterday. And I did a time-lapse video of me doing this. So you could see sort of an example in action here. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this video for y'all. So here I am, I chose to draw the succulent first. I'm sketching that out, looking at it more than my paper. I'm writing down the date and where I am and what I'm doing. And there's a prayer there. I wrote down the Maya Angelou quote and the song lyric there. And here I am doing the watercolors, and that was it. And so I think in real time, that took me about 15 minutes just to do the actual drawing and writing. And here's a close-up picture of it. And so I didn't write down my 5 senses in this one. I chose not to do that, but I did write down what was kind of going through my mind as I was preparing for this workshop, and these quotes that really stuck with me and kind of set the theme for what I wanted to tell you guys today. So. You waste years by not being able to waste hours. And Amos Tversky said that. He was a psychologist who studied how humans make decisions. And, you know, I just want to encourage all of you to waste time and waste time being still, slow down, contemplate, reflect, pay attention. Your journal can be a really helpful tool in slowing down. You know, it's a really helpful tool to understand ourselves better, and to understand others better. And, you know, I think both kind of go hand in hand there. You know, it's really something that as we're, you know, doing our everyday work, I think, you know, especially taking the emphasis off producing, you know, it really kind of grounds our value and our worth in just being, just because we are in this world and we exist. You know, it helps us to find that meaning when we're, you know, doing the dishes or, you know, doing work that is often not seen, you know, even just our, you know, just mundane things of our life. It helps us to open our eyes to the real value of our lives, and that our worth doesn't come from what we do or what we're able to do at all. So yeah, I really think that a lot of healing can come from that, and compassion grows from there too for other people. And so, you know, take this visual journal, pour it into your work, whatever it is that you do, pour it into your life. And everything that's, visible to others and invisible, seen and unseen. And I hope that it can be a real encouragement for you guys. So I do want to just share some examples of my own sketches. So this is one that I did in one of my sketchbooks from 2016. I was here in Austin at the airport waiting to board a flight to meet some old friends from college. And, there's really nothing better I can think of to do waiting in the airport than drawing. So that's what I did. This was from 2019. It's a sketch of my son out on his grandfather's land here in the Texas Hill Country. And it brought to mind, as I was sketching this old Anglican hymn, All Things Bright and Beautiful. It's really a beautiful hymn if you want to look that up later. And there's my son at his desk. This is right when the pandemic started last year. I think most of these are from the pandemic time. So I have dubbed these my COVID journal. That is my ode to HEB there. Very thankful for HEB, keeping us all fed and watered. That's me picking up curbside. This was our park, our neighborhood park. That's all, it was all taped up with caution tape at the time. That was May of last year. This is a drawing I did on our front porch. My son and I spent a lot of mornings outside when he was home from school, and I just wanted to capture that here. It was, just what felt safe. We could be outdoors, and I wrote about it here. It's in July. There's my son again. There's a lot of my son and of my husband because we were all home together. We still are. So, and so the ones of my son are actually from iPhone pics because he won't stay still. But others are like this one of my husband, and most of the other ones are from real life. So, the iPhone, your smartphones can be a real tool with paying attention. So yeah, that is the end of our work, or the practical part of our workshop. And thank you for joining me. And I hope that you learned something. I hope that you had a good time. I really did. I've been excited to do this since Anne asked me to. And please, find me online. If you go to my website, you can sign up for my newsletter that I send out about once a month. Not great about that, but about once a month, and you'll get like invites to shows and things once they start opening those up, and you'll get to see new work that I'm working on. And you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook, and there's my handle, Meena Matocha Art. And please take pictures of your sketches from your visual journal and tag me on it, tag the Doherty Art Center. I would really love to see them. And I just really love to stay in touch with all of you. So with the materials, okay, so this is my visual journal. It is called, like on the cover, it'll say visual journal. And I like the watercolor paper. I believe it's 140-pound watercolor paper, and that'll kind of keep things, the watercolor, it holds the watercolor really well. And the pen that I really like to use, it's a Micron pen. I hope everybody can see that. And I prefer the number 3 point. I feel like it's not too thick and it's not too thin, and it leaves a really good mark. And I think especially like if you notice, like my sketches tended to develop, especially after the pandemic started, like they were just really fast and really frenetic. And I think all of my anxiety was kind of coming out onto the page, and this helped me keep those marks true to life. So, and then this is the pocket watercolor case that I really like. This one's by Lucas. I think Windsor and Newton also has a really good one. Let me open it up here for you. So it has these little tablets of watercolor that are removable. If you need to replace them, you can buy replacements. But it has just the right amount of colors, and it has this, these little spaces up here for mixing and making washes. And I just really love how these colors show up on the page. And I wanted to show you, this is a brush pen or a brush that you can fill up with water. And so if you're out like that, the sketch that I did in the airport, I used this. And I had just filled it up before I went into the airport. But so I didn't have to have a water bottle or a cup or anything. It's just the water, you squeeze it, the water squeezes out, and you're able to kind of mix your colors there in the palette. But be sure to have plenty of paper towels, both to clean your brush with, and also to clean up any messes, because that happens. So I also would highly recommend just like a pencil case. I think this one was like 99 cents. There are nicer ones that you can get, but just a case. So, you have it wherever you go. And, if something comes to you when you're out, you can just write it down when you're there. And, and also being out in nature, it's just really great to have something convenient like that. So.
Okay, so now if you guys have questions for Meena, feel free to chat them in the chat over here, and I can relay those questions to her. I'd like to go ahead and start, because a couple of things that you mentioned as you were listing sort of this process was be honest and identifying things that feed your soul. And I feel like oftentimes people get stuck on this idea that the things that feed their soul always have to be profound, if that makes sense.
Right.
They always have to be profound and they have to be sacred. And I feel like for me, oftentimes I focus too much on what I think should feed my soul instead of simple things at times.
Yes.
I don't know. Have you ever come across that feeling, or like other people who have said, but what, I don't know what feeds my soul, or like, I don't know anything about poetry.
Exactly. I mean, those are things that are very personal to me. And I am also like a movie nut and a TV junkie, and I get a lot of inspiration from that too. And so, yeah, it's not like, yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be sacred. And a big part of it is really just being honest with yourself, and, if there's something, and even triggering emotions that we're not so proud of, shame and anger. Those are the things that I think when we start paying attention to those things, it is transformative for us. And so, yeah, like, don't expect anybody to look at your journal. It's something just for you and for your own personal growth.
We also have a question from CC Wilson, who is asking Meena, do you set a goal to visual journal each day?
Thanks, CC. I don't. I'm being honest here. Yeah, it really, it comes in waves, and it's kind of part of that rhythm. You kind of go with the rhythm of your life and where you are and what stage of life you are in. Ideally, I would love to have a daily practice of it, but it just doesn't happen that way. And it's just something I've had to, I need to have grace with myself and be okay with that. I would say that when I am keeping a visual journal, I do feel like I am much more self-aware, and I am much more like in touch with, just the outside world. I can see that those can be times of unhealth when I'm like not really being intentional about paying attention. And so, but again, it's just, you just have to have grace with yourself. It can't be a have to thing, and we're not always going to do what is best for us to do, and we're just human, and so that's just going to happen. And but just try to move past it, maybe try to see what it was that was keeping you from keeping the journal, or paying attention, and just step forward.
Okay, so somebody commented, personally, I find it overwhelming to set a daily goal for a whole year, but I have tried something, 30-day or 7-day daily goal of 15 minutes. If it was in a season when I felt like I could attempt that commitment. So I think
great.
Small goals, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's great.
Yeah, this was just nice. Thank you, Meena, again for agreeing to do this.
I was so happy to do it, and I'm really grateful to everyone who came and joined. Thank you so much.
So again, everybody, thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.